What's up, everyone? I'm JayDreamerZ, and welcome to episode number 160 of Truth in Movies. That's a lot of movies we've decoded together. Today, we're going to do one I can't believe we haven't done before. Interstellar. This is such a good film. This is right on the tail end of when Hollywood pretty much stopped making creative and good movies. It's got a good story, you know, pulls some tears. It's a little tearjerker moment. But lots of symbolism, lots of really interesting symbolism. It's good to see everybody in the chat. And if you are interested in my personal decodes, I have a new TV series that I just started that I've been promoting for a long time, kind of teasing it. It's called Chasing the Apocalypse. It's available right now on my Patreon for people who join that tier, Chasing the Apocalypse, on my Patreon account. It's JayDreamerZ.com. Or I'm sorry, it's patreon.com/JayDreamerZ. So check that out and let me know what you guys think about it. I hope you guys enjoy. A lot of people are comparing it to, you know, something from the Discovery Channel or the History Channel or Ancient Aliens or something, which is kind of what I was going for. Anyways, let's jump into decoding this movie. This movie is very interesting. It's all about going to and leaving the apex dome. If you're new to my channel, I want you to know I have an alternative cosmological view of our world and where we live, even what lies beyond our world. Not quite flat Earth, not quite. I don't really fit into any box per se when it comes to my cosmological views. I incorporate little pieces of all of them to build this sort of model in my mind of where we are and what our physical structure of our universe, if you want to call it that, I call it the fractalverse, what that looks like. So I believe that this is going to take us on a journey into the fractalverse, into that world. As always, it's brought to you by Mount Meru. Brought to you by Mount Meru. This is the quintessential mountain at the middle of the world, the magnetic mountain, the lodestone island. It also has a plasma sheath around it, or a little dome of energy surrounding it. It's also the Garden of Eden. This is just a symbolic element, but this is right at the center of our world. And this is considered home to many of us. And you're going to see this symbolically featured in the movie as well. It's also brought to you by Legendary Pictures. Legendary Pictures uses this sort of four-leaf clover symbolism, sort of an Irish symbol. All of these mean something. They're not just pretty. They're not just decorative. They're decorative to you if you don't understand what they are. You might think that that's just pretty and decorative, but you don't understand why. Your subconscious mind knows why. Your spirit memory knows why this is beautiful and decorative. And why it's, in fact, legendary, because this is the four corners of the earth. That's what that represents. Now, the mountains around the edge of the land at the center of the world at the North Pole, which I talk about in my second book, Return to Hyperborea, that land, the walls all the way around act as they shoot up so big and they go on for miles and miles, and they're just sheer-faced cliffs. The cracks in between those become the labyrinth that you must navigate before you can get to the center of the world, to that mountain, Rupus Nigra, aka Mount Meru. It's also brought to you by Syncope. So this one has the exact same labyrinth type of symbolism that you can see right there. That's navigating the labyrinth. Navigating the labyrinth is both physical. There's a physical labyrinth on Earth. And remember, this is all my perspective, my research, my opinion, my gut feeling, however you want to see it, okay? If it vibes with you, cool. But I believe there's a physical labyrinth, as I just described, using this one, on Earth. And you have to navigate that labyrinth in order to get past the walls of Eden, or the walls of paradise, to get to the center where that mountain is, that mountain right there. So we've got Syncope. You know, you could jump into the symbolism of the word sin as being sin, a copy of sinful conditions, stuff like that. But it also means sin meaning similar, I believe it is. So a copy of something similar. All right, jumping straight into the movie. We start with a bookshelf, all right? Anytime that you see a library, or sometimes it's represented or symbolized in a smaller form by a bookshelf, in movies, it oftentimes will represent Mount Meru itself, because that mountain is said to be the collective knowledge of all of the world's information. In the Emerald Tablets, it's referred to, and I'm specifically talking about when you go down into the mountain and the energy that this mountain harnesses. It harnesses the energy of the earth. It's not just the physical mountain itself, but it's the energy that is permeating the mountain, that's running through the mountain. That is the earth energy. The earth records everything that has ever been done and ever will be done in the earth. It is the records of all things. Some people refer to it as the Akashic records. Some people refer to it as the Hall of Records, and it literally is a hall because it's an opening in that central mountain in the earth. So it's represented by a collection of books, sometimes data sets, sometimes the internet itself can represent this, but we also have more context because we have a rocket ship. And we have lots of dust. We're going to talk about both of those and their relationship to the apocalypse itself. A rocket ship, something that symbolizes Mount Meru right there, and a bunch of dust. Keep that in mind. Now we have another rocket ship. This one is more a spaceship. This is more a modern day NASA spaceship. And the title of the movie, Interstellar. All right, cool. So we start off by looking at a spaceship, an actual one that's somewhere. We don't know where it is yet. I will tell you where it is as we move further on. He says, crossing the straits. So keep this in mind. Crossing the straits represents crossing through the pillars of Hercules. In the ancient world, there was a place, a physical, actual place on Earth known as the Pillars of Hercules. Two gigantic pillars that shot all the way up and seemed to touch the very dome above us itself. They were not mountains. They were never seen as just being mountains in antiquity, just some very tall hill or some very tall mountain. For example, the Strait or the Rock of Gibraltar. Nothing like that was the Pillars of Hercules. Now, over time, when people forgot about these beams of geoplasmas that shot high up into the sky from these mountains, which were volcanoes, then they just associated it with the mountain itself. So then the Pillars of Hercules became diminished and it became seen as mountains. And then it became seen as symbolic. And then it kept getting minimized over time. So this guy's crossing the straits. Two straits, two straight lines is what this represents. Now it's interesting also, you have the straight path, the straight and narrow path. The straight paths, because I will say that there's more than one straight path if you're on the earth and you're going towards the middle of the earth, that leads to paradise. This is the straight paths between what we call continents, if you're on the water. So if the Strait of Gibraltar, the Strait of the Bering Strait is also a good one, probably in reference to this too. So he's crossing the straits. So symbolically, when you're crossing the straits, you're going to between those 11s, between the two pillars, etc. You're entering into Hyperborea. You're entering into the Holy Land. You're going to the North Pole, the magnetic mountain at the middle. This might as well be Admiral Byrd. Admiral Byrd has said, he was a Navy admiral, and he made a trip to the North Pole. He allegedly has a secret diary where he crossed these straits going to the North Pole, and his craft started malfunctioning, and he was taken down into the earth. Similar things started to happen to this craft. It started to malfunction. This guy, fortunately, was dreaming. He was remembering something that happened to him, but he was dreaming. He wakes up. He looks out at the farmland. It's a beautiful day. But this is in the future. And this is an apocalyptic movie. So not everything is perfect on his farm. He says the wheat had died. As he looks out onto his farm, the blight came and we had to burn it. Now we've got this old woman and these people who are going to start talking to you about what happened. She says mostly we had dust. So we had blight, which is the crops dying, and dust, a whole bunch of dust everywhere. Lots of dirt all over the place. You can see this guy shoveling the dirt. She says we wore little strips of sheets on our faces to block out the dust so that we wouldn't breathe it all in. Now you think at first, if you studied American history, back in the 30s, we went through what was known as the Dust Bowl. Okay. It's just years of clouds of dust all over the place. People speculate as to why that happened. The most popular theory is because the farmers dug up all of the land in order to plant one type of food. And when they dug up all of that land, they dug up all the grass and stuff that was keeping all the dirt in and locked in, that all that dirt just started to blow up into the sky. And it just covered the Midwest especially, but pretty much all of the United States in dust for a very long time. And that was right around the same time as the Great Depression. This just made things terrible in the United States. But this concept of dust comes up from time to time in my particular research when I'm watching these movies, because that's what I'm doing when I'm watching the movies. I'm researching. I'm entertained. I'm amused. I'm having a good time. I'm getting lost in the story, but I'm also keeping one foot in reality. Okay, I'm learning basically from the movies. But dust and electricity. I'll come back to the dust and the electricity in a bit. But there's a reason. There's an electrical connection and there's an apocalypse connection, and we'll come back to that. She says when we set the table, we always had to put the plates upside down because the dust would all land on it. So, an apocalyptic movie, the apocalypse itself has something to do with dust, usually red-colored dust. Okay, tan, light brown, red-colored. Okay, it's not usually like volcanic dust, like it's ash, like it's gray or something. It usually has a red tint to it. Remember that movie, The Night of the Comet? I think we decoded that one, right? That one also had some red dust in it. How about that movie, The Golden Compass? The whole movie is centered around dust. So there's definitely a dust connection to the apocalypse itself. All right. So there's a father in this movie, and he's telling his daughter to get ready. She puts this little toy on the table that's broken, and she says that it knocked it off of her shelf. It is a ghost. It keeps on knocking books off of the shelf. And her brother says, let me guess, it was your ghost. So she's got this ghost in her room, which is that room that we just saw that has all the books in it. Well, you remember the books. All right, that's her bookshelf. So the dad says, don't just tell me that you're afraid of some ghost. You've got to record the facts, analyze, get to the how and the why, then present your conclusions, okay? So I like what the dad is doing here, okay? And they're giving you some tips on how to be a good parent in this movie too, which I appreciate. But what he's doing is he's talking to us. We are the children of the time that we live in right now. Humans used to live to be hundreds and hundreds of years old, according to every major belief system across the world, all right? We're babies right now. We just have this aging disease where we're like Benjamin Button. But we're children, and it has to be that way because even Jesus says, you have to be like a child in order to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Well, if the kingdom of heaven is Mount Meru returning and Atlantis rising up from the ocean and Hyperborea coming back as a physical land up in the North Pole, then that's going to happen during the time when the children are all here. The children populate the earth. That is us. We are the children. So anyways, what he's telling us and what he's teaching us is not to just leave something as is, not to just say, oh, it's gravity, or oh, it's a ghost, or oh, but to dive into it, to think about the implications, to ask why and the cause and the effect, and to be scientific about it, not to be academic about it. Okay? Not to be subordinate to mainstream academics and colleges and teachers and professors and pastors and ministers and whatever, but to be an autodidactic, to be a Renaissance man or a Renaissance woman, to be somebody who is self-studied, a polymath, somebody that is going to investigate, an explorer, an adventurer in your own mind. To be an explorer in your mind is to take an odyssey of the mind, a journey mentally to figure things out because you can. Now, the dad goes out with the grandpa. He looks out and sees some smoke and he's like, oh man, he's burning his crops over there. And he says, yeah, it's the last harvest for okra ever. So all the crops around the world are starting to die. This tells me what time this movie is taking place on the grand cycles of times between going into a golden age, or the millennial reign. Some people call that, the millennial reign, and the season of Satan, or a lack of energy up here on the surface. This is the time of the lack of energy. Whenever there is famine and plagues and disease and sicknesses and aging, they even make a point that this guy's the old man, right? This tells us where we are in this time cycle, because the movie's not just made up. The movie's not fictitious. It's not just some guy just thought of something brand new that no one's ever thought of before. These people that write stories and music and movies and stuff, they're reaching into what already was. And therefore it's a form of prophecy, because what already was will come again. Okay? So we're looking into both the past and our future. So he says blight. Now, what is blight? Blight's whenever all the crops go bad. Blight is, like a plague, but for plants, basically. They start rotting while they're still growing in the ground. Now, let's talk about the times that we live in. I've made videos talking about the Little Ice Age, and I speculate, and I still kind of speculate, that that's probably right around the time whenever this whole season of Satan, or lack of energy period, started. And this is around the 1300s. They call that the Little Ice Age. I remember I heard this whenever I was in elementary school long ago. The teacher was talking about the Ice Age, and in my mind it was, 10,000 years ago or longer. And they're like, actually, technically, we're still in an Ice Age. And I'm like, what? We are? Yes, technically, we're still in an Ice Age. The Ice Age is the age of the devil, the age that Satan's little season time. Okay, that the time when the energy is being charged by the earth, and therefore it's being siphoned into the earth, and therefore up here on the surface we lack the energy. The energy goes downwards. So this may have began around the 1300s approximately. Time is kind of wishy-washy, okay, but I'm just approximating that. 1300 to 1850 approximately is how long this Little Ice Age lasted for. This is a huge low pressure event, which means it must have been preceded by a great depressurization. This is where we get a worldwide low pressure event, is that pressure has to go somewhere. It has to escape from the earth. It goes up beyond the sky. The sky will open up from time to time, and the pressure around the world will drop. The temperature around the world will drop. You'll have more wet atmosphere, more fog and mist and rain and mud and stuff like that, which is the exact type of thing we see around that time frame, immediately after, during the Middle Ages. Okay? Now, drought. Where does drought come into play? Okay, because drought is happening in this movie as well. Immediately after this, we have drought. Drought is what led up to the Great Dust Bowl. So right around the 1850s, about 50 years later, maybe 80 years later, we have the Great Dust Bowl. Okay, we have droughts happening across the world. The Great Dust Bowl here in the United States wasn't the only place that this was happening. We had droughts in Australia. There was droughts in the UK. There's droughts all across the world. The world was suddenly starting to heat up and dry up. Why? Because if this is a depressurization that started the low pressure, okay, the atmospheric pressure leaves, the pressure drops, the temperatures drop, but then the dome fixes itself. There is no hole in our quote unquote atmosphere, or in the dome, the firmament, okay? Because it fixes itself. Once it fixes itself, it's a closed system once again, and the earth generates more gas, and it keeps generating more and more gas. And as it fills up with gas, the pressure starts to increase, and therefore the temperature starts to go back up, and the temperature starts to rise. And then we start to get, once we reach a crescendo, once we reach a boiling point for that pressure, then things start to dry out. The water starts to evaporate and disappear, and we have droughts and famines, and it's hard to plant things. And then that pressure starts to make it hotter. And then the sun itself starts to become more and more focused, or the light from the sun starts to become more and more focused. Daylight shortens, the shortening of the days. Because it's becoming more focused, the daylight gets hotter. The daylight starts to burn things, as it is now. If you're paying attention across the world, it's getting hotter and hotter to the point where people can't even work during peak daylight hours over in India right now. I just read an article about that. They have to break up their work day so they're not out working in 119 degrees heat over in India. Anyways, that leads to wildfires and more things as well. This is similar to what we found happening with the Irish potato famine, allegedly the potato famine, where the Irish were given potatoes, by the way, by the United States. That's allegedly where those bad potatoes came from. Now, I've got a different theory on the potato famine, okay? I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but in antiquity, or long ago, all of Ireland had this blight. This is what all their potatoes looked like. They were not edible. And it wasn't just that, Irish people only ate potatoes, but it was that the potatoes was a staple to their civilization over in Ireland. And so it had a domino effect on their economic structure and their social structure and work and all these other things too. So it really messed up a lot of people's lives, and a lot of people started to die because the potatoes went bad. Now, why did the potatoes go bad? What causes blight? I believe it has a lot to do with what is in the water. Bacteria that start to grow in the water, algae that starts to grow in the water, harmful algal blooms, for example, when that water gets warmer and warmer and warmer. If it starts to get too warm, then the water starts to become bitter. It starts to become wormwood, as it's described in the Bible. It starts to become bad, and that water gets inland, and it starts to affect the crops and stuff, as the water will obviously evaporate from one place, travel to another place. Rivers, streams, the ocean itself, all starts to go bad, and therefore the food all starts to go bad. So here's some examples of the potato blight. Now, they say it's caused by Phytophthora infestation. Now, I looked that up, and it's very similar. It's about the same family as algae. Okay, so it's not exactly bacteria. It's not exactly a fungus that causes this, although bacteria and funguses can cause blight. This particular one was caused by something that's closer in relationship to algae. And algae starts to grow a lot and flourish whenever it starts to get warmer. So the pressure starts to increase over time after it's already been released and the hole in the sky opened up. The weather starts to get hotter. You're going through this right now. Start looking around. Start paying attention. The earth is releasing massive amounts of gas. You're seeing all the volcanoes all erupting. You're seeing fireballs coming down from the sky all over the place that seem to be attracted to said volcanoes, by the way, which is really weird. Anyways, the dad tells the son, hey, be nice to that one lady because we need to repopulate the earth. Well, now we're learning that the earth's population is dwindling. This is supposed to be after our height, after we've got like 8 billion people. I think when this movie was made, they said there was 6 billion people, if you believe that. But now, allegedly, we have 8.5 billion, teetering on 9 billion, allegedly. But the population is about to take a huge dump. It's about to just go downhill because the fertility rates are dropping. Okay, and this is going to happen. I'm telling you now, it is happening. It's just that it's not mainstream yet. So keep this in mind. The movies are showing you what is going to happen in your future. He says to start pulling his weight, which means you need to try to have some babies because the population is way low. Now, the tire pops when he takes his kids out through the corn and they pull over. The dad, now pay attention to this. This is some good parenting. The dad tells the son, hey, get the patch kit, patch up this tire. The son says, how am I supposed to patch a tire way out here? And the dad says, you've got to figure that out. I'm not always going to be here to help you. This is huge to your survival. What does this have to do with the apocalypse? It has to do with your survival, not just good parenting, but it's good to be self-sufficient You need to learn how to do things on your own, even researching, even coming to different revelations or whatever. And all of you have your different areas of expertise, your different, modes of life that you're interested in, your interests and things that you're not interested in or whatever. But my point is, you've got to break free from this fast food mentality. Okay. You've got to break free from getting used to like being able to call up someone else to do it for you. When the apocalypse comes, you're going to have to figure it all out on your own. The more you figure out now, the less you'll have to figure out later, which means the safer you'll be. And the better equipped you'll be to take care of those you love who happen to be around you at the time. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, think of other people. The better you learn for yourself how to do something. You know what I mean? And we live during a time right now when you have the world's knowledge at your fingertips. Look it up, study it, research it, figure out how to do it, learn something new so that you can help somebody else out in the future. Now we get to the kid's school. So the dad's kid is in trouble. The girl, her name's Murphy. She's in trouble at school. The principal says, Miss Henley here's to talk about Murph. He wants to talk about her. She says, yeah, she's been having a little trouble lately. Now pay attention to this part. She brought in this book to show the other students. This is the section on lunar landings. And he goes, oh yeah, this is my old high school book. I gave this to her. She always loved the pictures. Yeah, it's an old federal textbook. And she goes, yeah, that's the problem. We've replaced those with the corrected versions of the lunar landings. So he's like, okay, the corrected versions? She says, yeah, explaining how the Apollo missions were all faked in order to bankrupt the Soviet Union. The Apollo missions were faked. This movie comes right out and says, in the future, the governments just admit, they just declassify that the moon missions were faked, actually. And he goes, huh, you don't believe we went to the moon? So now everything has kind of turned on its head. It's kind of topsy-turvy, right? So this is probably going to happen, I would imagine. I don't know. But I mean, like, even if it doesn't and they don't have real disclosure, this would be real disclosure, okay? I don't care about aliens personally. I would love them to disclose this kind of crap. She says, I believe it was a brilliant piece of propaganda that the Soviets bankrupted themselves, pouring resources into rockets and other useless machines. And this is blowing his mind because he totally believes that we landed on the moon. He used to be an astronaut in the movie. But Murphy got into a fist fight with several of her classmates over this Apollo nonsense. Now, obviously, I don't need to talk about that too much, okay? The moon landings are not real. You cannot land on a light. That is a luminary. But let me tell you the reality. You can land on what creates the moon, which is the firmament. It's possible, okay? It is a physical structure. So if you can figure out how to get to the firmament or the dome above us, you can figure out how to land on the moon or the real moon, the substance of what we see as a light in the sky, the substance behind the projection or the luminary that we call the moon. You guys hear me okay, right? You guys excited? I'm excited. All right, now all these machines, these robot machines, robot farmers, all start moving towards the farm all by themselves. They're just like drawn to the farm, and then they stop. And he says one by one, they've been peeling off of the fields and heading over towards the farm. That's because symbolically, this farm has this library inside of it, which represents Mount Meru, as I said. There's usually two different types of houses that they will show you that will represent Mount Meru in the movies. It's a white house or it's a black house, one of the two, almost always. A lighthouse or a dark house. Sometimes it's literally a lighthouse. If it's ever a lighthouse, it's always representative of Mount Meru, okay? Excuse me. But because it's Mount Meru, because this house contains Mount Meru, which is a magnetic mountain, all these machines are coming towards it. All of these robots or slaves are going on this exodus, leaving their work and headed towards this building, which symbolizes Mount Meru. So the guy says something's interfering with the compass, magnetism or some such. So magnetism, it is this magnetic rock, which is symbolized by this farmhouse, which has the library on the inside of it. So Rupus Nigra, Mount Meru, this mountain at the center of the world, is what in antiquity used to be known as a lodestone mountain. It's a magnetic mountain. It's made out of iron and magnetite. And because the earth shoots up an electrical charge or plasma or ionized gases that rush through that mountain for 1,000 years, it magnetizes the entire mountain, which is why your compasses know where it is. And it points you north, points you home. All right, so the dad goes upstairs to see what's going on because he hears some books falling, or he hears some thumping upstairs immediately after this magnetism anomaly. And lo and behold, he opens the door and it is the library. So this is the source of what is causing those magnetic anomalies, which the movie is going to sort of trip you up, and it's going to call these gravitational anomalies, but we'll talk about that. So here he is, face to face with the collection of knowledge. It's symbolic of Mount Meru. And the daughter says, I think it's a code because these books are being knocked off in a particular order. And he says, yeah, I don't think your bookshelf's trying to talk to you, because he doesn't believe in ghosts or anything like that. He's more of a scientist type, right? The reality is the bookshelf is trying to talk to him. You'll see what that's about here in a minute. Now, they're at a baseball game. Huge cloud of dust, a huge dust storm rolls in to the city, and everyone starts to panic and flee and take off and protect themselves. I don't know if you've ever seen a dust storm, an actual real dust storm. I was in Kuwait when I was in the Marine Corps, and we had a dust storm 5 times larger than the country of Kuwait blow in. So we had to wear scarves around our mouths and our noses. We were issued goggles. You cannot see very far in a dust storm. There's not much you can do in a dust storm. Now, what causes dust storm? I will tell you this. It's not just the wind. The wind doesn't just pick up physical objects and they just let dust flow forever. The wind has a part that it plays, but that's not the only thing that causes that. And by the way, that's why that's a time when it makes sense that you would need to wear like a mask or something. You don't want to breathe dust and have your lungs turn into mud. So the stuff like that now all of a sudden would make sense. So people are running around in this dust storm. And then they go into the library room, and you can see that the dust was falling in these beams or these columns or these lines or these straits, you could say, okay? Almost like rays of light right in front of the bookshelf. So the dust was falling, and she says it's the ghost. The ghost was causing these beams and pillars and lines of dust to coagulate in these particular spots. The ghost. Now, in the time to come, when the Earth releases its inner Earth gases and those ionize and become plasmas or geoplasmas that erupt straight up out of the Earth in the same pillars and beams and columns, many people will not know what they are. Some people will look at this like it's the horizon, and they'll think there's a comet right on the other side of the horizon. The comet has multiple tails. Some people will, come up with other things. Some people will think that they are ghosts. Ghosts will be seen by people in a time whenever we transition into a time whenever the atmosphere is electromagnetically amplified. We do not live during that time right now. We live during a time of energetic lessening or siphoning. There is no energy. We are losing energy constantly in the time we live in right now. When the atmosphere itself is electromagnetically amplified, you will see plasmas floating about. The things that people now call transient luminous events which is similar to like lightning, but more rare, like ball lightning or sprites, little flickering lights and orbs and stuff. Those will stay in the atmosphere. They won't be transient. They won't happen like that. Lightning won't just strike and then disappear instantly. It'll start striking longer and longer and longer until it's just walking around on the surface of the earth. And so will those balls of plasma and those little flickering lights. And that's where you get the story of pixies and fairies and stuff like that. But anyways, people will see ghosts. So some people call this type of stuff ghosts. Now, this is also the origin of the Sandman. The Sandman, where the Sandman makes his appearance. They wake up. People pass out when the Sandman appears. This is all tied into the depressurization effect. The depressurization of our atmosphere. When the sky opens up and our atmosphere leaves, obviously it's going to create a lot of wind around the world, a gigantic tempest, winds that just move around from west to east. And, there'll be counter rotations because there'll be anomalies and stuff too, little tornadoes and stuff like that. But the winds will blow up the dirt and the debris. When the dirt and the debris blow up, even right now before the apocalypse, all that dust that's moving around, rubbing against one another, causes what's known as a triboelectric effect, commonly known as static electricity. The dust starts to become electrical the more it moves around together. That electricity starts to, it wants to move in a circular pattern. And whenever it starts to move in a circular pattern, now you have dust devils. And it starts to suck up more dust. And then it's just a self-generating effect as it gets bigger and bigger and stronger. And the dust starts to lift up. And it is the Sandman. It is the electricity itself that is lifting the dust up into the air. You can try this if your body is electrically amplified, or you take like a balloon, rub it on your hair, and then you put the balloon just over some sand. Some of that sand, if you do it right, will jump up and stick to the balloon. It will defy gravity. It will lift up into the air. So when you have these geoplasmas, these pillars all around the world of different sizes of lights, that electricity that shoots up out of the earth, it's going to affect the dust and the debris and the sand and stuff all around the world. So when people see this main gigantic pillar of light that comes out of the largest opening on earth, that comes up out of Mount Meru, it shoots up and it spreads its arms outward, right? Like Jesus on the cross or Odin on his tree, or many other things that people see it as. It shoots up as a tree of life. It branches out. And then they see all the sand kicking up. They associate that stick figure man hanging in the sky with the sand that is rising up all around the world, all the dust that is rising up all around the world. And that beam of light is made out of the inner earth oxygen from gigantic plants that live down inside of the hollow earth. There's just way more vegetation down there than there is up here. And when it releases all of that oxygen that those gigantic plants, and it's not just the plants, they have algae and they have all kinds of things down there that produce oxygen, and nitrogen too. But all that oxygen is let up here into the surface, and it oxidizes the dust and the sand and the debris and stuff, which turns it red. It literally rusts the dirt, which gives us red dust, red clay, red dirt, etc. Anyways, that will be the Sandman. And a lot of people, when the atmosphere depressurizes, they will pass out, okay? When you have this difference in pressure, a lot of people will pass out. And not only that, people will pass out because they're panicking as well, and they can't breathe and other reasons, but they will pass out. And they will wake up with dust all up in their eyes and stuff, and people will say they saw this stick figure light man in the sky or whatever, and that is the origin of the Sandman. All right, just checking the chat real quick, make sure everything's good. Now, he starts studying this code because these books are pushed out in a certain order, and he says it's not Morse code, it's coordinates. So this bookshelf just gave them coordinates through a code to a particular place, a location. So they get out a map, right? The bookshelf, meaning like the library, research, studying, trying to figure out the origin of this anomaly, which represents Mount Meru, just gave you coordinates. Okay, so they get out these maps and stuff, and they're looking up these coordinates. He says, here we go. And he busts out the map, and you can't see it right here, but he says 33. Okay, matter of fact, let me just make that a little smaller. You see that? Boom. Right there. I always watch it with captions on. But he says 33 as he doesn't explain that in the movie. But 33 represents Mount Meru. Okay? That's why the Freemasons use it. Okay? Because the Freemasons come from one of the tribes that came from Hyperborea, that came from the Garden of Eden, that came from Avalon, the center of the world. Okay? And Mount Meru is the number 33 because it's 33 miles around in circumference, according to the tradition. Anyways, 33, he says under his breath. And then he looks at the map and he circles this little area. Let me check it out. I don't know if I zoomed into this before, but he circles this place on the map. Now, it's interesting because I was looking at this map and I was like, wait a minute. Let me see that map. Because it says right here, Bull Mountain. And I live in Colorado. And I'm like, Bull Mountain? That sounds familiar. And it's just east of Bull Mountain. I'm like, there's a Bull Mountain up by Cripple Creek, up in the mountains by where I lived, out west. He says, that's it. I'm like, dude, he's in Colorado. Guess where they guess where they go? They go to NORAD. So 33, it takes them to a hollowed out mountain. The bookshelf, which represents Mount Meru, which is a hollowed out mountain or a plasma volcano, takes them to a hollowed out mountain, which is NORAD, which is a doomsday bunker. And that's all it is, okay? It's not war games. It's nothing but a damn doomsday bunker, okay? This is an underground city, probably one of the biggest in the world. It's probably a handful. I'd say like 5, just huge ones, similar to NORAD around the world. But this is a doomsday bunker. So these coordinates take him literally to a doomsday bunker. So he drives into NORAD, where he is being asked questions by an AI robot, basically, who wants to know, where did you get these coordinates? So advanced sophisticated technology, advanced AI that is inside of NORAD, that is inside of these doomsday bunkers, which means people are building AI. This is what I'm getting from it, okay? People are building AI to help them survive the apocalypse. They're putting it into the doomsday bunkers so that they can run the doomsday bunkers efficiently. This is, it's not a huge leap, but that's what I'm getting from that. This robot's name is TARS, T-A-R-S, and the movie does not explain why. Are you blind? Because if you are, you can just read it right here. It's in Braille. See? T-A-R-S, right there in Braille. So is it an acronym for star? Could be. Is it an acronym for rats? Because humans are like the rats? Could be. Is it arts? I don't know. What do you guys think? Now, this woman comes and takes him into this room so he's not being interrogated anymore. He walks into the room and there's all these dudes in suits at some kind of sophisticated meeting. And in the background, you can see there is a name. And this is very interesting because we just decoded this name. This just came up in our research. I don't remember what the freaking presentation was called, but I know we just decoded the name Lazarus, right? I'll come back to the name Lazarus. Now, the guys start asking him, explain to me how you found this facility. And he says, well, we learned these coordinates from an anomaly. An anomaly that he's referencing is Mount Meru. Mount Meru put out a signal in the movie, symbolically. Mount Meru in real life will put out a signal, literally and physically, that you will pick up on, some of you, I believe, okay? And I've seen this same trope from movie to movie to movie to movie. Mount Meru is putting out a signal. Right now, it puts out energy. Animals can sense it. Animals will flock to Hyperborea, which is how all the animals knew where Noah's Ark was. It's how all the animals knew where Adam was to receive their names. All the people who are tuned in to that frequency will hear a sound nobody else can hear. He says, we learned these coordinates from an anomaly. And you go, what sort of an anomaly? He says, I hesitate to give the term supernatural. It is supernatural. Supernatural just means something nature is doing that is not understood by humans, basically. The daughter says it was gravity. It was gravity. Now, this is interesting. Let's talk about gravity. Let's talk about gravity for a quick second, okay? I am not one of those conspiracy theorists that will just immediately flag something as not existing, okay? Just like he taught us earlier. He said, don't just say it's a ghost and leave it at that. Do your research, analyze it, come to conclusions, etc. You know what I mean? So what I have done is my research on the concept of gravity. Let's start with the word grav. Grav means a depression. It means to go into something or down into something. It doesn't have to mean downward per se, but for example, an engraving is when you carve into something else. You go into something else, or you go deeper, you could say, into something else. A graven image is a carved image, right? Écrivez, en français, si vous préférez, écrivez means to write. To write into something, like ancient carving as writing first began, as rock carvings and stuff. So anyways, the word grave itself is digging into the ground. It means to go down into something. If that something is sideways, you're still going down into it, okay? But if it's underneath you, now you're going down into it in that direction. So what is gravity? Gravity is simply going down. Or we call that, simply put, sinking. When you go down because you are more dense than the medium that surrounds you, or the fluid that surrounds us, which we call air, then we go down, we sink. And that is what gravity is. Therefore, the opposite of that, or anti-gravity, would be called buoyancy, which is a force that pushes up, because you are less dense, or an object is less dense than the surrounding fluid or medium. So that, I hope that helps to explain exactly what gravity actually is, as I see it. I hope that helps some people out there. So they're having gravitational anomalies. Now, if they're having gravitational anomalies, what they're really having is, let's remember, buoyancy anomalies. That's really what it is, because gravity is just sinking, which is a byproduct of buoyancy. Okay? Buoyancy is the force. Gravity is how something works within or in proximity to that force, right? So when he says they're having gravitational anomalies, they're really having buoyancy anomalies, which is really a pressure anomaly, and a density anomaly. So we're going to come back to that. Now she says, listen, we're NASA. We're actually NASA, okay? We didn't kidnap you or anything. You just stumbled onto NASA grounds. Now, NASA has been disbanded in this fictional future in the movie. As you already saw, they don't believe in the moon landings anymore. People didn't want to support NASA, space travel, any of that stuff. So now NASA is doing it covertly. The government is funding this stuff under the radar, not telling the people that they're still doing, you know, all these space missions and stuff. So they open up this false wall and he can see a spaceship right there. He says, I heard that they shut you guys down for refusing to drop bombs from the stratosphere. Huh. Now that's interesting. How many times have I been telling you guys that they are putting bombs into the freaking sky, okay? I've been talking about that a lot lately, that they are putting bombs up there into the heavens, up into the sky, because there's a war against the firmament, because they're trying to crack the firmament open. And now he's referencing NASA dropping bombs from the stratosphere, right? On dropping bombs onto starving people from the stratosphere. He says when they realized that killing other people wasn't going to work, it's not a long-term solution, so they needed us back. But he says excuse me. He says they needed us back in secret. And he goes, why did they need you back in secret? He says, because public opinion wouldn't allow spending money on space explorations. Not when you're struggling to put food on the table. Now, can you see this as something that feasibly might happen in our near future? You know, you have wars or gas prices getting super high, or people working all day long just to be able to take their family to dinner that night. You know what I mean? People going hungry. You'll have rioting. You'll have all kinds of stuff. The people are going to say, screw space. Forget, how much does that cost? How many trillions of dollars are you spending on space travel for this Artemis mission? So the people, right, there's a problem. The people are going to react to that problem, and the solution will be, okay, we'll take that away. But in reality, they just don't need to tell you about their operations any longer. They don't need to tell you, they don't need to make up cover stories. They don't need to waste the time and the energy of letting everyone in on it because you all see rockets blasting off or whatever. Instead, they're going to blast their rockets off, but they're not going to tell you about it. They'll just let you go, oh, what was that? And let you guys become conspiracy theorists and tell each other, oh, there's no way that's NASA. They shut NASA down. No, that's probably, debris, or that's gas from a swamp or whatever. You know what I mean? They'll do themselves a favor by taking you out of the equation, by making you not want them to exist. So they'll just go into hiding. So he says, Earth's atmosphere is 80% nitrogen. We don't even breathe nitrogen, but the blight does, and it thrives. Our air gets less and less oxygen as it breathes. Now, that doesn't even make any sense. The movie totally contradicted itself. It's saying that this blight that's killing crops is sucking out all of the oxygen, but it breathes nitrogen. So that doesn't make sense to me. But the point that the movie is making is that there is less and less oxygen than there used to be. And on our very first Truth in Movies, or maybe one of the first top 5 that we did was Total Recall, the good one. There was the whole concept of running out of oxygen and restoring oxygen, and there being a great oxidation event on the horizon once again. We live during the greater time when our world is lacking oxygen. Now, there's a caveat to that. There's an exception. Just before the apocalypse comes, there will be a little spike in oxygen. And that's because it gets so hot that the oceans start actually releasing all of their dissolved oxygen, and they don't absorb any more oxygen. Normally, the ocean water will absorb oxygen, and the ocean acts as the Earth's lungs, breathing in and releasing certain chemicals or gases. But when it gets too hot, it won't absorb any of that oxygen. It will release all of its dissolved oxygen. Fish start to die. There's all kinds of death in the ocean and stuff. And this is prophecy in the book of Revelation, where it says 1/3 of the ocean's life will die as the ocean becomes red tide and turns blood red. Okay. But anyways, less oxygen. So if you look at scientific studies, even modern academics agrees that there's less oxygen today than there used to be, 100 years ago. Okay, so there's less oxygen there's less and less and less oxygen. Now, mainstream academics will blame it on us and say it's the carbon dioxide from pollution. And I'm telling you, it's not. It is nature taking our oxygen away, not to punish anybody, but just because that's a natural part of the cycles and the rhythms that we are going through. The time will come when you will be refreshed, and there will be a holy wind, a pure energetic wind of fresh oxygen that rushes through all of your places where you live. But that comes after the apocalypse. So the people are starving, the people are suffocating, the people are tired. And at this point in the movie, the daughter asks if she can take a nap. So they're really stressing that there's a lack of energy at this particular point in time. And he says, now you need to tell me what your plan is to save the world. He says, we're not meant to save the world. We're meant to leave it. They're going to leave the world behind. They're not meant to save the world. They're meant to leave it. So he shows them the rocket ship. And he says, so you sent people out there looking for a new home, right? Remember, they're doing all this in secret. He says, yes, these are called the Lazarus missions. Now, remember, when we broke down the word Lazarus, it has to do with those beams of energy, those blue beams of light, those geoplasmas that erupt from the Earth, ionized oxygen primarily, and nitrogen. Okay? That light erupts, you see something coming up out of the cave, it's life, it's alive, and then it dies, and it goes back down into the cave, and then it comes back to life, etc. This is Lazarus. The word azure, right? Like, or lapis lazuli. Is that how you say that? Lapis lazuli, like the rock. Okay. It implies blue. It's a blue stone. So az means very or strong or strongly. And then azur means light. La is just the in French. Okay. Or you could say al in, Middle Eastern. Is it Middle Eastern? I forgot. Islamic. Is that how you say that? Islamic or something? Arabic. That's what it was. So Arabic, al and le in France, azar. So al-azar or lazar os, which means strong or God. You could say too. In ancient Norse, os meant God, as well as very powerful. So it means the very powerful light or the God light, basically. Okay. And it's associated with the color blue. Lazarus. Lazarus came back from the dead, he says. Now you can also see right next to him, the word level is on the wall, but it also spells Eve, which is interesting. He said, we started detecting gravitational anomalies almost 50 years ago. Now, this is a movie, right? So I shouldn't be able to go into the actual historic record and find gravitational anomalies. The Earth should be solid, right? It's got a magnetic core, and we should be fine. He says, I believe you encountered one yourself. And then I stopped the movie right then and there. I'm like, he's talking to me. He's talking to me. He's not talking to the other guy in the movie. He's talking to me. I believe you encountered a gravitational anomaly yourself. He says, yeah, over the straits. Remember the straits, the pillars of Hercules? So I looked it up, and I've talked about this before. What is this gravitational anomaly that appeared in Africa? In 2007, something strange happened in the eastern Atlantic Ocean. According to satellites orbiting Earth, our planet's gravity field developed a continent-scale anomaly. Here is a map of gravitational anomalies that they have. Like, this wasn't a thing that existed when I was a young child growing up. These gravitational anomalies were not in the news every week. Scientists discover a hidden gravity hole beneath Antarctica. What you're watching in the movies is happening. Okay? If you're distracted by your own life being regurgitated right back to you, and you're thinking that it's not real, but it is real. The movies are showing you. Geophysicists solve a mystery of the 75-year-old gravity hole in the Indian Ocean. And I thought to myself, gravity, problems with gravity. The Earth losing gravity. Oh, that's right. There was Project Anchor. Remember that internet rumor that everyone just quickly, all the major official sources were real quick to debunk? Oh, it's debunked. Oh, that's so dumb. The Earth can't lose gravity. Well, the Earth can't have anomalies with gravity, right? No, it's got to be consistent. Yeah, but they're so tiny, you just wouldn't notice. Oh, it's so big. Oh, it's so long ago. You see how they play with your mind? They can make anything they say legitimate by saying it's too small for you to see. It's too big for you to comprehend. It happened too long ago for you to know about it. But all of these anomalies, and by the way, the reason why we're having these gravity anomalies, because like I said, it's not gravity, it's a sinking problem. It is a buoyancy problem. Buoyancy is increasing in particular places around the world and then decreasing suddenly. That's because there is an increase in gas and a decrease in gas. As one place increases, the other place decreases, and it's going back and forth. The inner Earth is releasing massive amounts of gas right now, which is changing our structured buoyancy that we're used to feeling in different places, or at least used to measuring in different places, I should say. Now, when the sky opens, gravity will disappear. If you believe in gravity, you're going to be very shocked because the earth will have zero gravity, okay? Instead of everything sinking, everything will float for a short period of time. And then it will all float back down. Whatever doesn't get sucked up into the fractal verse out beyond the dome. He says, but all of these anomalies, the most significant of all of these is this. And then he shows you a picture of the solar system and zooms in on none other than the planet Saturn. Oh, thank you, CJC, in the chat. I appreciate your comment. So, the planet Saturn, what does the planet Saturn have to do with the apocalypse? What does the planet Saturn have to do with gravitational anomalies and depressurization, etc.? I will tell you, the planet Saturn is the apex dome in the heavens. So we have the dome above us, the firmament of old, like a big bowl, upside down bowl hanging over the earth, which, by the way, is made out of frozen gas, which is ice. But in the top, at the very top, it bows downward. So imagine the rings there are like the firmament, okay? This is a bowl shape or an upside down dome that hangs at the top of the firmament itself, at the top of the dome. Okay, and that was seen in antiquity, and the plasma would come out of the opening right here because that's where the world will break. That's where the sky will break open. Plasma came out, and it will start going around that object, looking like it has a ring, look like a ringed planet in the sky. That was at the North Pole, the celestial North Pole. That's where the North Star would be, and people will see this object or something similar to this, but much bigger. And appears to be much closer, even though technically it's further away, because it's the planets and the stars are under the dome, but this is a part of the dome itself. Okay, but anyways, this is Kronos, and this was the age of Kronos. This was the age when people looked up and saw this egg shape in the sky, and some people worshipped it and prayed to it, and it became a whole religion, and it became the age of Saturn. So he says, up there near Saturn, we've discovered a disturbance in space-time. So now there's a problem with time, or what they're calling space-time. Well, we're having a problem with time right now. Time is speeding up. I know you guys, most of you are going to say, like, you didn't have enough time at some point in this past 2 weeks. You had to have thought to yourself, I don't have enough time in my day to get things done. I don't have enough time in my day. Like, especially if you go to work and you work for 8 hours or more a day, I don't have enough time to rest when I get home. I need to like go to sleep immediately upon finishing work, just so that I can get a little bit of energy and feel well rested a little for the next day. And even then, you're going to drink a bunch of coffee, Monsters, energy drinks, Red Bulls, etc. I know you are, because time is quickening. There is anomalies with time happening. A disturbance of space-time. Now, I looked at this image. I couldn't really make anything out of that. I don't know. But if you guys might see something there, let me know. And then timestamp your comment right here, and I'll check it out. But anyways, yeah, this is the space-time anomaly, as they called it. So he says, is that a wormhole? Now, remember, if they're looking at the dome, Saturn being, this is the top of the firmament, this is the apex dome, which was seen in antiquity multiple times, over and over again throughout the historic record. Okay, there are times when people see this. Then the wormhole, when he asks, is that a wormhole, is the actual hole in the apex dome. Okay, you poke a hole in that, which is just ice. Remember, it's just made out of ice. When there's a hole in the sky, all the atmosphere will get sucked out right there, just right there. On the other side, so if this is the firmament, okay, on the other side of the firmament up here beyond, there are plasma filaments, right? That's what causes the light that comes into this world, is plasma on the other side that's spiraling down over the apex dome, over our firmament, okay? So if you were to poke a hole in that and look beyond it, what you would see is, I speculate and I theorize, I hypothesize, is a bunch of swirling light, swirling plasmas. You would see what's traditionally conceptualized as the Einstein-Rosen bridge, or the wormhole. It is a plasma filament, a conduit that is hollow in the middle. So when plasma moves, it spirals, okay? Which leaves the center of a plasma filament hollow. There's nothing in it. It's just plasma around the outside. And if that plasma filament is large enough, then you would be able to just ride the magnetic current that it produces all by itself and follow it wherever it goes. He says it's a disturbance of space-time. Is that a wormhole? And where does it lead? Well, he says it leads to another galaxy. It leads to other worlds, right? And that's where it leads. Because outside of this Earth, outside of our world, are multiple other Earths. Not planets, not like totally different alien worlds or anything, but exact same copies. Earth number 1. Over here, Earth number 2. Up here, Earth number 3, Earth number 4, all the way out there to infinity and beyond. Just Earth after Earth after Earth. Could there be some other worlds and stuff? Yes, there could be. And this gets into my concept of what I call the fractal verse, which is holographic and fractal in nature. It is looping in on itself and it's repetitious. The code keeps repeating over and over and over, and it has to, because it all comes from the same source. So that same source has to keep repeating the source information over and over and over. It's a source code. And there's a movie that's all about that called Source Code with Jake Gyllenhaal, who happens to be one of my doppelgangers, I think. A wormhole is not a naturally occurring phenomenon. So this hole in the dome, he's saying somebody put that there. It doesn't happen naturally. Although it does happen naturally, and somebody can put that there. Sometimes it's both. She says someone placed it there. Someone put a hole in that apex dome. Someone put that wormhole in space. Someone put that black hole in space purposefully. So he says they put it there. She says they appear to be looking out for us. So it was them. So who do we reference as being them in our day-to-day walk? You know what I mean? Like, it's them. It's the system. It's the hidden hand. It's the people that run this world. That's almost always them. We're not talking about aliens and other weird things. Like when I say it's them, I'm not talking about Bigfoot. I'm talking about the ruling class of humanoids that are here now in our world. It's them. They put it there. They've put potentially habitable worlds right within our reach, this guy says. So he says there's a plan A and a plan B to saving the world. Okay. Plan A is this office that they're in, NORAD, is actually a giant space station. And that's where they shoot the rockets, but they're also trying to figure out how to overcome gravity so that they can just blast this thing off altogether from NORAD. Basically the whole mountain, just lift it up into space. He says, how do you get it off the ground? He says, well, when we had these gravitational anomalies, we knew that harnessing gravity was real. So when they learned the simplicity of, you know, buoyancy and floating and flotation and stuff like that, then they learned how to make things float. So I started working on a theory, he says. Then there's population B. Not population. Plan B. Okay. Plan A is they're going to try to figure out gravity so they can just float this huge space station up into the sky, which is just fixed in the mountain, basically. Plan B is to take everyone's DNA and make what they call a population bomb. They're going to fertilize 5,000 eggs, and they're going to create people in test tubes and plant those into surrogate mothers. This is happening now. Okay. As you will see, this one is not real. Okay. The plan to like blast off and to like everyone's going to leave the earth behind and stuff is not real. They're lying to you in the movie, and the movie makes it abundantly clear of that. Okay. This one is real, that they are stealing people's DNA, their genetic sequences, to clone them, to make copies of them, to repopulate after there are cataclysmic and catastrophic events that decimate populations. That is real. And they're underground right now in a geneticist laboratory in the movie. This is real. This actually exists. They're just taking what is happening right now, recording it with a bunch of actors, and then showing it to you and allowing you to jump to the conclusion that that is fictitious. So he goes back to the daughter. He tells her, I got to go into space. I got to go into this black hole. I got to save humanity because we're going to look for another Earth so that we can all float up and go to this other world. We're all going to ascend. That's the hope here. Okay. There is no great ascension physically. Okay. I know some people are very like 5D or whatever. That's cool. I love that. And a lot of you guys I'm friends with. But we can be friends and disagree, okay? If you think you're just going to just, do some beam me up Scotty type stuff and you'll just appear in this love-filled 5 dimension full of hippies and flowers and I don't know. Sweet. Good on you. That's great. I hope that happens for you. I hope that happens for me. That it sounds lovely. But in reality, when the whole world starts to all ascend at one time, it's because they're physically getting sucked up into the heavens by a worldwide storm, and buoyancy has increased because the atmosphere is getting sucked out of the firmament itself. And people are going to be freaking out and passing out and all the things that will come with that. That's how I see it actually physically occurring, okay? Does enlightenment happen? Yes, of course. Are they the same, though? No, they're not, okay? Can you go to another world? Can you ascend and leave this world and go to another plane of existence physically in another dimension, which is a bigger place or a smaller place out there beyond in the fractalverse? Yes, I believe you can. That's what they're doing. That's what NASA's doing. That's what Elon Musk is doing. That's what they're all trying to do is leave your ass in the grass, leave you in the dust, okay? Leave you behind to face the apocalypse while they escape and get out of here. She decoded the message from the bookshelf and it says, stay. Stay, don't go out there. Now, there's 2 modes of thought as far as should we be fractalverse travelers. If you can leave the dome, if you can leave the earth, which I believe it is physically possible, should you? Should I? Is it good for a person to do that? Well, it depends, I believe, okay? I would probably be seen more of a rebel when it comes to that notion because I would personally want to leave. I would want to go out there and free all of the other versions of myself on all of the other Earths and, teach myself all of the things I wish other people would just come teach me or whatever. But there's a rule against that. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to leave these worlds closed. You're not supposed to try to go between worlds, and then you're seen as a virus trying to change the body of the collective mind of God, we'll say. Okay, I'm getting super deep at the moment, but there's 2 modes of thought. There's the rebels that encourage traveling from place to place and spreading the good news and, freeing everyone, freeing the minds of everyone. And then there are the other ones that don't want you to. They're basically space police that say, stay where you are. We only travel around to keep you from traveling around. And it's very hypocritical. So anyways, back to the movie. It says, stay, Dad. So he busts out a watch. He says, here's a watch for you. Here's a watch for me. Why? Because time is going to change for him. Right? Academics teaches this. They say that the closer you are to the earth, you'll experience time differently than somebody who is way high up or whatever. That's not what's happening. You all experience time the exact same. But how you age and how fast you age will change. If you live in a different place where conditions promote cellular regeneration, then your 3, 4, 5, 30 years can go by for you, and you would maybe age a day or two. Whereas somebody else that lives in worse conditions, where there is a lack of oxygen and a lack of energy and a lack of electricity, etc., they start aging real quick. They're falling apart. They're becoming decrepit. They're wrinkling. Their hair's turning gray. You know what I mean? And that is the time differential. They both still experience time the same as one another. It's just that for one, time's going by real quick. They're having fun. They're young for a very long time. They come back, you know, let's say that, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. That happens in the Garden of Eden, okay? Because of the abundance of energy that's there. That tends to happen down inside of the earth as well, every other cycle. And then that happens in between worlds. So outside of the dome, up in heaven, up in the heavens where people do not age and you live forever. All right. You come back down into the southlands of the actual earth, people are aging real quick. And there's fluctuations to that too. So now keep in mind, they're going to try to do three things. They're going to try to leave the earth, and they're going to find 3 different worlds, and then they need to pick one of those worlds to be the most suitable to start all over on. Another Earth out there, okay? So they blasted off. They're in their spaceship, but where are they? Are they in the fractal verse? No, they're not. You know how I know? Because the fractal verse, the heavens, are not dark. They're still in Earth right now. You see that? There's the sun right there. That's the Earth. The sky's still black, okay? If you get beyond the dome, it does not look like that. It will blow you away how much you can see. Everything up there is full of stuff. It's full of light. It's full of all kinds of things. You're going to see all kinds of stuff out there. All right? It is not darkness. That is a veil that is keeping you from seeing the bigger picture. And I'm not saying it's being done on purpose, but I kind of think everything's done for a purpose and serves a purpose. But that's darkness. So in the movie, even though they're trying to make you think they've blasted off into space just like NASA does today, they're still in the space between the dome and the Earth. So let's see what happens. They want to get past the dome. If they want to get past the dome, they're going to have to blow a hole in the dome. They need an explosion. Remember that for later. All right, so they're going up to the space station. Now, look at this circular nature of this space station. Movies always show you a space station that looks like a tire. Why? It's a subconscious need to put that circle in the sky, at the top of the apex of the sky, because people look up and they see a circle in the sky in antiquity, and it was the apex dome. It was the hole in the sky. It's the place where the gods live, etc. That shape is not necessary for a space station. They make it like that so you can imagine it's spinning around and people are stuck to it because of centrifugal force. If they're floating in space, spinning it won't do that. And it makes it you have to walk all the way around just to get to that building over there. It would be way easier to have like a cube like the Borg or a sphere, or, you know, you can make any shape. But they make it this bicycle wheel shape so you can imagine it spinning so they can artificially simulate gravity. That won't happen. The room I'm in right now, if it just started spinning and I'm in space and I'm just free floating in my chair right now, and you took my room and just started spinning it, I'm still going to be floating. The room will spin around me. I'll have to grab onto it, and then, you know, then it'll be pulling me. That's not how it works. This is symbolic. This is deeply ingrained in the recesses of your collective subconscious that there needs to be a circle up there in the sky. Otherwise, the ISS would look like that, and it doesn't. And they're not going to build any kind of circular space station like that, because then they're going to have to try to spin it and see if that works, and it's not going to work. Okay. What else? Oh, so then they get to Saturn, because Saturn is the location of where this wormhole is. Now remember, Saturn is the apex dome in antiquity. And in my new series, Chasing the Apocalypse, by the way, I show you lots of imagery in Washington, D.C., where you can see that they put this egg in the sky. Anyways, they go up to Saturn in order to get to this wormhole, which is just an opening in the firmament itself. So in order to get to other worlds and get beyond the firmament, they have to go through Saturn. They have to get through the wormhole up there. Now, this guy has a personal conversation with them, and he's like, I'm terrified right now. Like, there's just millimeters of aluminum, which is their rocket ship, aluminum between us and like millions and billions of miles of space that wants to kill us. So this guy says, you know, that some of the finest solo yachtsmen in the world don't know how to swim. They don't know how to swim. If they go overboard, they drown. We're explorers. That is inspirational. Some of you guys out there are too worried. I've heard too many people when it comes to the apocalypse say, well, I don't know. Why should I even try? You know, no one's going to survive. I don't know how to survive. I'm not a survivor. I don't know how to build a fire. I can't do this and that. That's you. You're the black guy over there who's scared that space is just going to crush him. Instead of focusing on what you have, on what you're good at, instead of focusing on your purpose and your drive and your interests and your talents, that's your boat. You're an explorer. And on top of that, when the time comes, you're most likely not going to be alone. All right. And you don't need professionals of every kind. You don't need a whole boat full of people that are just good at everything. If you look at the example of Jason and the Argonauts, long ago, Jason went to go find the Golden Fleece, and he had all of these heroes of legend with him on the boat, the Argo. Each one of those people had their own area of expertise. There were some people like Hercules he was the strongest one. He could throw things super far, but he wasn't very intelligent. And you had another guy who was super intelligent. They all had their own areas of expertise. They come together and they benefit from one another. Now, if each one of those if Hercules looked at himself and said, I mean, yeah, I'm strong, but I'm not that smart. Like, I don't know if we're going to make it, guys. I don't know if you really need me because I'm not that intelligent. You know what I mean? That's not what people need. We need you to be confident. We need you to excel in whatever you're already good at, because you're good at it for a reason. Whatever you're already interested in is its own contribution to what is necessary for everyone else's benefit. You know what I mean? That's how we truly come together during those times. So don't worry. That's all I'm trying to say. Especially when it comes to the apocalypse. Stop thinking about all the bad stuff. Okay? Stop burying yourself before you even die. Okay? Live. It's an adventure. Keep going. Keep pushing. Focus on the positive. Focus on the solution instead of the problem. Now, they come up to the black hole and they notice it's like this bubble out there in space. But we notice it's not a bubble. We notice it is the apex dome. Okay? So depending on how people looked at the apex dome, their perspective from here on Earth or up in the heavens, it will look differently. Okay? It's called perspective. Things look differently from different angles. You ever go bowling and you look at the pins straight on, and then you look at the pins on the other lanes and you're like, wow, why do they move the pins around? They're not. They're the same pins, same triangle, but they look different because of the perspective. It's the same thing with the apex dome and many other things. Those beams of light that come up out of the earth, all those things, they change based on perspective. This is a dome in the sky that literally has the stars in it. In the movie, it's this bubble that has all the stars, galaxies or whatever they put in there, has all the stars. The apex dome is what casts our stars into our sky. It's what casts the image of the moon or itself into our sky. It's what creates the sun in our sky. We've seen this in antiquity. People have drawn this very same shape, very same image in antiquity. Here's a couple of examples. I've got hundreds of them. This is the apex dome right there. Okay. These two virgin ladies are symbolic, but they always put the stars inside of the apex dome. They will not put the stars outside in these medieval to dark age paintings. They will put the sun inside of the apex dome. They will put the moon inside of the apex dome. This is not the whole entire sky. This is the physical structure of the apex dome itself. How do I know? Because there's different accounts. Here it is again, seen from below. Instead of seen from the side where it would look like a bowl hanging down or half of an egg shape, this is looking directly up at it as if you were in the Garden of Eden looking straight up. This is the apex dome. It has the sun and the moon because it creates the sun and the moon. It has the stars because it creates the stars. There are no stars in the background, okay? The background's gold because the sky was golden. This is during the Golden Age. Here's the apex dome. Here's Atlas. Actually, I think this is Hercules. So Hercules held up the sky for Atlas for a short period of time. I don't know if this is Atlas or Hercules. I think it's Hercules. But anyways, here he is holding up the sky, the physical portion of the sky. This is the apex dome with the stars inside of it between the pillars of Hercules. Yeah, obviously it's Hercules. So here's the pillars of Hercules, right? The anode and cathode beam on either side that come up out of the mountain, just like I said. They're not physical columns, they're beams of light. And it's 101. This is the place where it all begins, right there at the center of the world. This is the apex dome. This is the 0 point. This is the, what do they call it? Black hole in the sky, okay? All that stuff. Here it is again. Here's Atlas holding up the freaking apex dome with the stars inside of it. Here's literally a poster for Interstellar, the movie we're watching. This scene is not anywhere in the movie. They just made this poster with this big bluish white light that goes up to this dome in the sky. That's the blue beam of plasma going up, wrapping around that apex dome. Anyways, so here's their view of going towards the apex dome in the sky. I'll play it kind of fast so you can get a feel for it. So they're very close to the apex dome, okay? This is what it looks like. You can kind of see it. It's hard in a still frame, so I got to play it kind of fast. But you can see they're coming up on the apex dome itself. Then they get through it. So once they get through it, this is what they see. This is the wormhole. So this would be inside of a gigantic plasma filament that is spiraling around you, and you're following the natural magnetic current of that plasma filament. And it's just pulling you. You don't even need to know where to go. It's going to take you where it wants you to go. Unless it branches off, then that would be another story altogether. But they go through this plasma filament. This is the wormhole. Dr. What's his name? Doctor Who? He travels through one of these. This is all over the place, okay? So they're traveling through this wormhole. So they have, in theory, they're showing you what it would look like if you did go through the apex dome. Now, they're going to show you this other world, this other planet that they're going to try to check out to see if this is suitable for human life. It's right next to this supermassive black hole. They keep calling black holes bigger and bigger names. Supermassive black hole right there, right? Well, that's the apex dome once again. They're just showing you the same thing over and over again. This is the apex dome. This is plasma wrapped around the apex dome, or the black hole sun, the hole in the sky. And they're going to try to get to this other world. So what's this other world look like on their way to the apex dome? Well, there's a bunch of clouds and then water. So these are the waters above. Before you get to the actual dome of frozen gases, you'll hit water. There's water up there, okay? Just like there's water down here, there's water up there. So they get out, they land, the water is pretty shallow for some reason. And when they look, they see these mountains way off in the distance. And then they keep looking at it and they go, oh my God, those are not mountains. Those are waves. So they do a double take and they go, oh my God, this is a wave. So this water is so shallow because it's getting sucked up into the sky, into these huge waves like tsunamis that are just hundreds and hundreds of feet tall on this alien planet. So there's some symbolism that's happening here. One is they're on their way to the dome. They have not found that other Earth. They have not settled down yet. This is symbolically showing you the different steps you need to take, the different things you will encounter on your way to heaven, on your way to the dome, okay? But the other thing is that depressurization. When there is atmospheric depressurization, the water will lift up just like that, okay? Some of you will see this. Some of you will live during a time when there is rapid atmospheric depressurization and the ocean waves don't crash. They just keep building and building and building. And there'll just be a whole bunch of them in rows. And then the ocean starts to lift up and get sucked out. And pretty soon the seas are removed. They're gone as they get sucked out of the hole in our sky. And that's due to Archimedes' principle. That's due to rapid atmospheric depressurization and the increase in buoyancy that immediately follows it and is equal to however much gas is released. And remember, there's 5 quintillion pounds of atmosphere in our sky. So however many pounds of atmosphere leaves will be instantly replaced with that much buoyancy that is pushing up on you in all directions. Or from underneath, you know what I mean? So the ocean waves rise. This is also where you get the Red Sea. The Red Sea did actually lift up. I don't believe in all those modern attempts at reconciling the Red Sea with modern academics and just thinking, oh, you know, maybe it fell inward and maybe, no. I literally believe that the Red Sea event was describing, okay, that the actual water lifted straight up into the sky and got sucked up into the sky. I believe the people were able to cross and not get sucked up because they stuck their feet way down into the mud where the water once was. And they lodged themselves into the earth. And they were able to cross during that time because they didn't have anything to hold on to. They're out there on the beach. You know what I mean? So I believe people shoved their feet way down into the mud and they were able to cross. At least that's a possibility. All right, so they see this huge wave of water just lifting straight up into the air, just like Moses, or this happens in Moana. And there's lots of different movies that feature the water lifting straight up into the air. And this is due to rapid atmospheric depressurization. Like I said, it's literally touching a cloud right there. All right, so they're trying to get out of here before the wave comes crashing down onto them. But then when they get back, their buddy who was left behind, he's aged. He's aged really fast. So 23 years have passed and now he's 23 years older. Now the old scientist, this is the guy that was the leader of NASA in the movie. Please remember that. He asks the dad's daughter, Murphy, this is her now, she's older, back on Earth. Remember, time's faster for her. She lives during the season of Satan when time goes by faster. He says, forgive me. He's the leader of NASA. Remember that. She says, there's nothing to forgive. You're good. It's okay. He goes, I lied to you. She's like, what? He says, there is no way to help us. I lied. So when he said he had a plan A, which was save everybody physically and blast us all off and we're all going to escape and stuff, or plan B, only a couple of us are actually going to survive and leave the world on rockets, and we're going to take our DNA zoo or whatever, our DNA zoobly zoo with us. He's like, that's really the only plan that there was. Plan B was plan A. So he lied. NASA lied. So this is NASA saying, sorry about that. The ends justified the means, everyone. We thought we were trying to save the world. And this is what they're going to do. They're going to try to lower the temperature on Earth because it's going to get real hot. It is getting real hot right now. All right. The pressure is increasing right now. They're going to try to poke a hole in the dome and relieve the pressure and lower the temperatures across the world. That's not going to do anything. That's going to make it worse. Okay. That's going to cause a mini cataclysm. But they're lying to you about all of it. And this is NASA in the form of this guy right here saying, I lied to you. Here, hold on. Let me just show you the words. Makes me feel good so you can see it. See that? The head of NASA right here. I lied to you. It's not this guy in the movie talking to the girl in the movie. They're always talking to you. Please remember that. Now, they're on this second world. So they went to the water world. They went to the waters above. Now they're on the second world. I wonder, what can we expect on the second world? Well, if the dome is made out of ice, I expect us to find a world made out of ice. They're flying through these clouds, and lo and behold, bam, they hit a cloud. It's like frozen. Interesting. The water vapor up there is frozen. It's becoming ice way up in the sky. Frozen clouds, she says. They land on this world. Boom. They touch down on the ice. This is the moon. Okay. This is the real actual moon is water. Frozen ice. I don't know if it's actually water. You know what I mean? But it's ice. Okay. If you melt it and have some kind of liquid. Okay. But it's water. That's why the moon has, you know, all the dark spots are called seas because it's freaking made out of water. Okay. It's made out of frozen gas at the very least. So they land on the frozen gas, okay, which they think is this other world or whatever. Looks around. That's pretty much the moon. That's pretty much the dome. He should be upside down. Can I flip this upside down? So this is the reality of it, okay? He's on the firmament right now. And they show you this a lot in the movies. They play with perspective all the time. Sometimes you need to flip that picture upside down so you can understand what's really happening, especially when they visit Antarctica. All right, so he lands on this ice world after they have just left the water world. They find this guy who's in hypersleep and they wake him up. It's Matt Damon. He just finished, surviving on Mars from his other movie. So now he's over here on the frozen planet, I guess. That's a joke. That's a joke, boy. Looky here, son. That's a joke. Anyways, Foghorn Leghorn. All right, so they're walking around on top of the firmament, on top of the dome. Now, I didn't really plan to talk about this, but I believe it's possible for people to literally walk upside down on the dome, okay, upside down above us. In the same way that for the same reasons that buoyancy causes us to stick to the ground down here, okay, people will continue to stick to the ground as they walk up the side of the Earth, because the Earth, I believe, comes up on the sides, or Antarctica. And then the dome itself, they could feasibly walk upside down. So these people right here could be literally walking upside down. I know that might not jive with some people, and that's okay. Okay, I've explained the physics behind how this is possible in many different videos. If it doesn't sit well with you, that's okay. Okay, just take what does resonate. Some people out there get way too in your feelings, man. Like, you guys need to stop looking up to me so damn much that the second I say something that doesn't jive with you, that you just lose your shit and go nuts in my comments section. You need to stop that, okay? Like, some people will see me take a sip out of a soda. I swear to God. I'm like, I thought you were a truther. All caps, exclamation point. Jesus, man, listen, just because I'm a YouTuber, just because I'm a truth seeker or an author or whatever, just because you like me doesn't mean I am perfect. I am flawed. I'm still trying to do better, okay? So stop coming down hard on me. People like me, YouTubers, I know, this is intermission, okay? Go get some popcorn. Intermission. There's lots of us out here doing a service for you. Collectively, out there, whoever you are, we got to go through the mud and the muck as truth seekers who put our faces out there every single day. We have to listen to people judge us, tell us how bad we are and evil we are, that we're demonic, that we are leading people astray. That's the last one I heard. That we're reptilian, because look at my hands. If you freeze frame it right now, oh my God, I have a reptilian hand. That we're doing hand signs, that we're poisoning ourselves, that we're, like the other day, I got bit by a dog. Somebody wanted to see proof. You're like, see that little dot? That's the dog bite, okay? And then I guarantee you somebody's going to say, how do we know? Where's your hospital paperwork? I insist you personally prove that to me personally. You know what I mean? The world's full of bad people who have no trust, who cannot recognize the love that exists inside of my soul, which is really where this presentation comes from. That connects with the love that they have, because they don't have love. They're shadows. They're shadow people. They're empty vessels, and they get mad real quick. Don't let them influence you. That's all I'm saying. Okay, cut us some slack. Help us out. Throw us a bone. We've been doing this for years for you guys, for free, pretty much. And for the most part, I've got like over 1,000 videos, and they're like 95% of them are probably free. Anyways, cut us some slack, man. You know, if we do something you don't like or whatever, don't put all that perfection onto us, okay? Just be thankful, contribute where you can. I would appreciate it, all right? And so would other YouTubers, I'm sure. I'm speaking for a lot of people right now. All right, so anyways, back to the movie, back to the presentation. Let's see. Oh, so then they learn that there's this monstrous lie, right? And he's like, yeah, I knew about it all along. It's unforgivable. And this is the guy that lives on the dome or the firmament, okay? The lie was that they can't save humanity, that they can only save themselves. Only those who have the ability and the means to leave the earth physically with the right equipment, like rockets and special pressure suits and stuff like that, only they can leave. He says, yeah, I know it's unforgivable, but their case is hopeless, he says. They're doomed, or they're domed. They're under the dome, right? They're going to be under the dome. They are doomed. That's where the word doom comes from. He says, we are the future. We're going to leave here and go procreate on other worlds. This is literally panspermia. That's where the sperm in panspermia comes from. If you don't know what panspermia is, it's just this theory that comets carried ancient life to different planets or whatever. Comets don't make life, okay? Giant slushy space balls or whatever. No, sorry. It's people, okay? The people that escape the worlds and they go out to other Earths and they land on those Earths and then they procreate with the women of that world or whatever and the men of that world, okay? That's panspermia. That's really how it happens. All right, so he takes Matthew McConaughey for a walk. He tricks them into thinking that they're going to go out and look for the surface because I guess that he thinks they're up on one of those clouds or whatever. And he says, like, all right, let me see your communication device. Tosses it into this big hole. He's like, what are you doing? Then he pushes them down into the hole. He holds onto the wall. And he goes, I can't let you. I can't let you. Once people realize this place. Sorry, let me read this correctly. Once the others realize what this place isn't. Once people realize what this place is not, which is some world. The dome above you is not some world. All those little blinky lights you're looking at are not worlds. Even the ones that look holographic, like the moon and the planets, those are not worlds. Those are not other places where there are beings that live there. If there was, I'm sure they would come visit and you know what I mean? The odds are pretty good that they would do that. They don't, because we are inside and under a dome. We're closed off from the rest of those worlds out there. The dome will open up and they can come visit and you can leave. It's a possibility. He says, we can't survive here. They are on the dome right now. This is, now can people actually live up there? Yeah, I think they can. But is it preferable? Probably not. It's basically just like Antarctica. It's just ice everywhere. Now, could there be an exception to that? I do believe so. I think there's exceptions and anomalies to everything. So he's like, there's no surface? He's like, no, there's no surface. You're on the roof. Okay? You're on the roof of the world. The surface is underneath you or above you. So for him, the surface would be down here, right? If he's on the dome. He's like, there's no surface. They start wrestling. They start fighting each other. Then, like I said, you need an explosion. There's an explosion up there on the dome. Boom. Huge explosion. This is the moon. Okay? This is the apex dome, which is the actual physical moon that projects its own image into our sky. NASA is trying to blow up the moon to cause atmospheric depressurization, to open up a hole or a portal into the sky or a stargate. Okay? A gate in this portion of the firmament. All right? For different reasons. One might be to escape, but two is going to be to lower the pressure in our world and lower the temperature. All right, so we have this huge explosion on this world that represents the firmament itself. Now, they get in their spaceships, they blast off, they're all trying to race back to this, what do you call it? Space station or whatever they have here, their main spaceship. So they get there. Matt Damon is the bad guy. He lied to everybody. He caused the explosion. He tried to kill the other guy. He gets here first, but he can't drive the spaceship. It doesn't dock correctly. It doesn't like latch on all the way. So when he tries to open the door, we have a depressurization event that is shown to you in the movie. So this huge depressurization that causes the space station to blow up directly above the firmament world. Do you see the connection that they're making? There is the explosion on the firmament. Where is it? Right there. So we have the explosion on the firmament, immediately followed by this depressurization. Boom, everything gets sucked out. And there's the firmament. That is the sky. You're looking up. This is what you can see right now. You can see the ISS or whatever's floating up there in the space between the firmament right here, right? Which is the moon, and our world, the surface. All right, so then they get back into the spaceship. They've tried 2 worlds now before they can try to get out of the Earth and go repopulate some other world. So they go back to the black hole. They're going to try one more thing. So they're going to go through the black hole. Matthew McConaughey leaves the other astronaut lady so she can go find that last world. He goes into the black hole because he wants to return to Earth. And he has to. You have to go through the black hole to get back to Earth. On whatever Earth you're on, it's the same way. So he's talking about what he sees as he goes through the black hole. There's lots of flashes of light and things of that nature. He says gravity is increasing, but that's because he's getting stuck to his seat because he's going so fast, getting sucked in. Anyways, he's going through this black hole. It's just the opening. Now he's going to fall down. So now this is the fallen angels. Okay, this is a symbolic reference to other beings. You can call them angels. You can call them demons or devils or however you want to see it. But there are physical humanoid beings that travel the fractalverse, represented by this tesseract over here, right? With this, like, I think that's like a 5-dimensional cube or something. But anyways, a physical being that comes down into our world from another Earth, from another place beyond the dome where we live. He drops down into this tesseract, which is like a hypercube. And whenever things slow down, we see what it's made out of. He's on the other side of that bookcase. That same bookcase that we saw in the beginning, the same bookcase that represented all of the collective information on Earth. The same bookcase that represents Mount Meru. He's now surrounded by it, which means the place where he just fell as he left that hole in the sky, or went through the black hole, he came straight down and landed on that mountain, Mount Meru, or inside of it, since he's inside of it and he's surrounded by it. But this is where people will always land. No matter what world you visit, our world has a mountain at the center. The other worlds do too. They're all magnetic. They're all Mount Meru. There's different ones, okay? But they're all the same. There's always going to be a crater-shaped world that goes up in the middle. And the same way the world is shaped, crater-shaped, and then goes up in the middle, or bowl-shaped, rising up in the middle. I don't know how to do it with my hands, but like an apple, like the bottom of an apple. Okay? That looks funny. This is the shape of the world. Okay? It goes up on the sides, and it comes up in the middle. That's the shape of the world above us, the dome, too. Okay? The dome is just like that. This is the apex dome up here. All right, anyways. I hope that makes sense to some of you, at least. So he's inside of Mount Meru. That's all I wanted to say. He has access to the Akashic Records, to the Hall of Amenti, to the Hall of Records, etc. And he says they saved us. So they created this place for him. He's like, who the hell is they? And then he starts to understand. And he says, it's us. We did this. We brought ourselves here. I brought myself here, he realizes, because he starts to look through the bookshelf and realizes he's the ghost that's been pushing the books off of the bookshelf all along. So what is this telling us, or telling me? This is telling me that NASA is the ones that are in charge of doing this, that they are leaving this world And there's NASA on other worlds. There's Elon Musk's on other worlds. There's SpaceX and all that type of stuff. They have space agencies on other worlds too. Okay. Depending on their level of advancements and stuff like that. Okay. There's like an infinite number of worlds. So they have the same thing on other worlds. NASA from some other world is going to land in this world. They're going to have their own version of space travelers land over here as they play cosmic chutes and ladders or snakes and ladders or whatever, going from world to world. And they will drop down at Mount Meru, and savages that are just survivors in the Southlands are going to see strange things coming down and beings coming down and having antiquitech, ancient technology, being different colors because they've adapted to different light sources and all kinds of stuff. And then the same myths and the same religions will be born and the same stories will unfold time and time and time again. And it is us. It's your story. The ones that you're worshiping, the ones that you're listening to, the ones that you're being taught, it's all your story over and over again. Okay? It's just repetitive. It is a never-ending story. So he says, we're here to communicate with the three-dimensional world. We are the bridge. This is also the greater us. Okay, so he's looking down on himself. So this is him down on earth. And it was him up here pushing the books out, trying to communicate. This is literally his higher self, his fifth dimensional self or whatever, trying to communicate with him by suggesting certain books to read, I'll say, okay? Like, hey, let me put something onto your path. Let me put something right in front of you at just the right time. Let me change history in certain ways, like the Mandela effect, and pull on these little strings and stuff to get your attention because I'm trying to send you a message, a personal message from your higher self down to you right there. And then he wakes up because ultimately this is all a dream. Not really in the movie. It's not all a dream, but this is symbolic that we do live inside of the mind of God, as I like to call it, right? This is all mental. It is all a dream, inside of a dream, forever and ever and ever. That's why it's holographic and fractal. He wakes up. He gets up. He walks over to the curtains. Oh, they said something about his oxygen supply right there. Anyways, he looks out and he looks up and look. See how the earth is curved up like that? So the earth curves upwards. And then like the baseball goes through the house or whatever. But I wanted to focus on the earth curving upwards at the edges. Here's an old map. Some people consider this map to be ridiculous. I don't. My cosmological view includes all the models, all of the different Earth's shapes and stuff, okay? I like to take the best parts from all of them and put them together into something that is feasible and makes sense to me personally. This is called the square and stationary Earth model. Here we have the Earth rising up like a hump in the middle. You see that? And it goes back down. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. It's because of electricity. Electricity pulls it up in the middle, and electricity creates the canyons on the side. On the sides of the Earth itself pulls up. And then you have Antarctica, or it's all frozen over here. What they do not show you, even though it is interesting, they show this little archway from the sun and the moon right there. What they do not show you is the dome. They can't show you the Earth if they show you the dome because you can't see through the dome. So they would have to make like a translucent looking bubble or a dome over the Earth right here. But this is what it would look like if you were able to see beyond the atmosphere. The atmosphere compacts. That's why you can't see, London from here. I can't see Big Ben, even if I get on top of a tall mountain or whatever, because there's particulates in the air. And over miles and miles and miles, those will just become fog and things disappear. You can't see that far. If you could, what you should be able to see is that Antarctica is way higher up than all the rest of these continents, which helps to explain why it's freezing cold for me personally. Okay. And then the dome itself would be the ice that connects the land. Bam, right there. So for me, that helps to understand why he looks up and the world is curved. This would be like the Halo universe too, stuff like that. This is also you would be able to look over and see the land portion when there is no ice. Like this is Antarctica on a map down here showing no ice. They call it Terra Australis or Terra Australis Nondum Cognita, which means unknown. Here's the Urbano Monti 1584 map. Here is Antarctica. No ice. As a matter of fact, this one shows all kinds of animals and tropical plants and stuff in Antarctica. And it's not the only one. There are many different maps from antiquity that show Antarctica, the rim of the world. If the world is kind of bowl-shaped, bowing upwards in the middle, okay, then this top portion, Antarctica, would be the furthest south. And for all the people like flat earthers that are wondering like how you can see the 24-hour sun, if you understand that Antarctica goes up like this and you look up at the sun, you're looking this way and you see the sun going around you like that. That's why you see a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Anyways, here's another map with land in Antarctica, no ice, animals. Here's a giant sloth. Here's a lion. I don't know what that is, but it's some kind of animal. What you do not see is ice, and you do not see frozen. Here's a rhinoceros. Here's a giant bird of some kind. Here's a unicorn. Here's a griffin. Okay. This is not people making it up. Okay. This was drawn during a time when there was no ice in Antarctica. Because the world gets really hot whenever we have these beams of geoplasmas just permeating the atmosphere, just filling the air with energy. Yeah, it gets real warm. It becomes a constant summer. And the world gets real hot. And there's any ice that is around will be very rare, I'll tell you that. Ice will be very hard to find during that time. But this is, the low pressure system comes in every other cycle. So then things get cold. The little ice age that we talked about towards the beginning, right? Why do you think in the Wild West people dressed to the frickin' nines? Why do you think in the Wild West, out in the desert in the western plains of the United States, people are wearing like hats and gloves and like jacket after jacket and shirt after shirt and pants and boots and stuff like that? You think it's just because they were just modest? No, they're freezing cold. It wasn't that hot. Why do you think in antiquity, people, if you see pictures of people at the beach was cold, man. That's why they wore pants and stuff to the beach. Not because they were modest. It was practical. They're freezing cold. Anyways, so this girl was left behind. She's out on that other Earth in the fractal verse. This is basically Earth. Okay, but it's a copy of our world. She's an outsider though. She's a copy. There's probably one of her on this world already. She probably landed in a part of it that's uninhabited, and she just thinks the whole world's uninhabited or something. But I guarantee you that's Earth. She's probably in Greenland in some other version of Earth right now. And she's going to like start making a whole new world, and pretty soon she's going to encounter the aliens, which are actually going to be Earthlings. So she goes back to her little base camp. That's Earth. I mean, you could tell that's Earth. That's not some foreign Earth-like match, a match made in heaven. That is another Earth. It's a genetic, it's a copy of this world at the energetic coding level. Okay, there's a bunch of them out there in the fractalverse. And that is our presentation for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please excuse my last-minute notification on my phone. I forgot to turn off notifications. But yeah, I hope you guys had a good time checking that out. If you want to watch my new show, Chasing the Apocalypse, or jump into the credits or any of the other awesome benefits that I offer people, value for value, go over to my Patreon, patreon.com/JayDreamerZ. And you can also check out my book if you're interested in the apocalypse itself. I highly recommend getting Ancient Oblivion, the Plasma Apocalypse, available on my website, JayDreamerZ.com. Or if you're interested in this land at the center of the world and our cosmology and the origins and the beginnings of things, check out Ancient Oblivion, Return to Hyperborea, also available on my website. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
chat.